You can't go in on it because he will grill you
and
he
rip you to shreds.
That's right. He's very clever too.
One of the greatest treasures in the world of righteous consciousness.
Yeah. So today's question is, why do you or why don't you celebrate Christmas? That's what I want to hear from you. Why do you or why don't you celebrate Christmas? No, people are trying to coax us into buying stuff. And we know they're putting all the toys and all the colourful sweeties on the bottom shelf in the supermarket. Yeah, so our children can see it. And you see what I'm saying? So our children can put pressure on us. And at the nurseries, we know the nurseries and the schools are saying, what are we going to do about Christmas? And they've got some Christmas theme, aren't they? And your child comes on with I made this card for you, Daddy. Made this card for you, Mom. Making you feel like you got to buy a present. And you know when they go back in January, the talk is going to be, so what did you do for Christmas? And that's actually incorrect-ish. And a happy Bromalia Christmas Day. Enjoy your Norse Yule log. You've been listening to the previous shows. Good. And declare Odin. Kiss under the druidic mistletoe. Declare and appoint an abbot of misrule. Decorate the pagan sacred tree. Let Eartha take on the guise of Santa. What's wrong with a pagan tree? Do you know what pagan actually means? Pagan means anything not Christian. So technically Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, what's that one? The Force, what's that one? Luke Skywalker? Jediism, all of those, they're all pagan, every last one of them.
The red-nosed reindeer
Hey.
had a very shiny nose.
Hey.
And if you ever saw him,
Hey.
you would even say it glows.
Hey.
All of the other reindeers
Ho.
used to laugh and call him names.
Hey.
They wouldn't let poor Rudolph
Hey.
join in any reindeer game.
Hey. Wheel!
Well, Christmas is not really a Christian tradition.
Go on. That's what they just said on that clip. Go on, tell us.
Yeah, exactly. Because in the Jewish book, the Jewish scriptures, actually Jesus was actually prophesied that he was going to be born the day of the atonement, not actually 25th of December.
Okay.
Which is around September, late September, early October.
Gosh. Okay.
So
yeah.
he was born on the day of the tabernacles. The head of the head of the church is not a man. It's not just a man. Some man in Milan or Rome or whatever.
Yeah, but don't all the denominations of Christianity originally come from the Roman Catholicism strand?
Not really, because the apostolic churches, which was the first church established back in the day, probably around after Christ died, the first church was called the Apostolic Church.
It's a metaphor, and Jesus is a metaphor for the sun. And so boiling it down, Christianity is sun worship based on astrology, because nobody owns the sun. Africans don't own it, and we don't own the sun. So obviously the sun belongs to God. So it's God's sun, and he's the light of the world. Of course the sun's the light of the world. What else lights the world if it's not the sun? And he has 12 helpers. Of course, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 months of the year. He is our risen Savior. Of course, it rises every morning about 5:30. And the sun is your Savior. If it don't come up, we're dead. So once you start breaking down the symbols in the New Testament, you begin to see that Christianity is basically astrology and sun worship.
Final thoughts and
my final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
My final thoughts.
Tonight's final thought. Now it's time for my final thought.
Now it's time. For God's final thoughts. Final thoughts. Final thoughts.
Right. I asked you, why do you or why don't you celebrate Christmas? So I'll tell you why I don't celebrate Christmas, and then I'll break it down a bit further. I don't celebrate Christmas because even though it's based on something that comes from me, as in ancient Egyptians or Cometians or Tassetians, wherever it's coming from, and it is something based in nature, universal principles and laws, movement of stars and planets. I don't celebrate Christmas as it stands today because of all the corruption that have been involved in it. I actually have no problem with paganism. I consider myself to be a pagan, quite happily be a pagan. I'd rather be a pagan than a moon worshipper, if that makes sense to you, or a worshipper of the Pope, or an apostolistics, or a diphysite religion. I'd rather be a moon worshipper, a pagan. So I'm quite happy being a pagan, doing my yoga and whatever it might be, and living in harmony and with peace with people. I'm not trying to convert anybody and bang them over the head if they don't agree with me. So yeah, leave me with that, I'm quite fine. But I do not practice the 25th, even though I know the significance of it and know that there were celebrations in the ancient African cultures around this time, which is why we have Kwanzaa. I do, to a certain extent, incorporate Kwanzaa into my daily makeup, so you could check that out. I don't follow it strictly. Don't think there's a need to at the moment, but that may change in the future, especially with me having 2 children. Now, why do you celebrate Christmas? Well, I think you celebrate Christmas for various reasons, but let me just deal with this quickly. Let me take this one out for you, Brandy. I think last month we did relationships, and we did relationships because we find that it's way too easy. People break unharmonious or dysfunctional relationships in this, or what they see as dysfunctional relationships, quite quickly. So you might be with a man or a woman, they're getting on your nerves, you're fed up with them, you break your relationship with them, right? Now, I believe our relationship with festivals and ceremonies and rites and holidays and all that in this country are dysfunctional, not in sync with us. That's what I believe. But for some reason, we are averse to breaking those relationships, those dysfunctional relationships, i.e. that dysfunctional relationship with Easter, the movable feast, which is never on the same day because it's based on the movements of the moon. Breaking that dysfunctional relationship with a commercialized, consumerism-based Christmas. It's this aversion. What is all that about? Breaking this unhealthy cycle. We all say we know what's going on, but we don't want to break it. And those people who do celebrate it, they're not even happy with Christmas, the consumerism and the commercialism involved in Christmas, and they're doing nothing to break the cycle. They are still buying presents and so on and so forth and talking about God in the sky. Well, you might not know his astrology, but I do. Right. Also, I've got some text here to read. I will read out the text before I go and say adieu for 2011. I think I should just say this, yeah, because it's the last one for the year. Just put it in there. Something that's been hitting me in my head. I think as long as we have fake hair, as long as we like fake hair, men and women, fake hair, as long as we are in the church or in the mosque, as long as we say we're Afrocentric and conscious, I personally feel this unhealthy cycle will never be broken. I believe these mindsets, the thought patterns that generate these mindsets and these actions of Afrocentricity or consciousness or church and mosque, you go to the church or the mosque Christianity, or these concepts that make us wear somebody else's hair, as long as we're doing those things, we will never break unhealthy cycles. Because it's quite clear what goes on in the brain is manifested out there, isn't it? For me, they are all indicators of where we are mentally. That's what these things tell us. They tell us where we are in our growth. Because we went back to childhood and we're becoming adults again, aren't we? So it tells us where we are. It's an indicator. I strongly believe what you think is what you do. So if you do Christmas, it tells them what type of person you are and where you are intellectually on your evolutionary growth. It tells them where you are as long as much as everything else. So even just to send the message that I'm not in sync with you, that is a good enough reason to just opt out. Like some people opt out of voting because it's pointless. Well, I don't understand why people don't opt out of Christmas. I do understand. I lie. I do understand. And this is why you don't opt out. This is why you don't opt out of fake hair. This is why you don't opt out of church. This is why you don't opt out of the mosque. And this is why you don't opt out of Afrocentricity and consciousness. And I say that in inverted commas over my head. This is why you don't opt out. You're not in control of your mind. Someone else is. And if you've listened to this show quite regularly, you know at the very end of the show, I've got something I always say about controlling your thoughts and your emotions and so on and so forth. And I'm telling you why you don't opt out. you are not in control. It is in control. It is in control of you. And until you come to terms with that reality, ain't nothing going to change for you. Everything you're disappointed with in the world, people dying and community not moving and racism and politicians, ain't nothing going to change until you stop them, these conglomerates, these big businesses, these churches that are run as businesses, from controlling your mind and controlling your actions, even if you don't want to do it. I hope I'm making sense here. Am I making sense, Brandy? Yeah, I think oh, good. Yeah? So, I think in 2012, when they talk about the age of Aquarius and so on and so forth, I think the movement needs to be towards you controlling your mind, you controlling your thoughts, and not a TV advert, and not tradition that has been, or indoctrination that has been wrapped up as tradition. That's what it is. Indoctrination wrapped up as tradition. Lies wrapped up as religion. It's for you to take that step in 2012. I think if you do that, you will prosper. And there are ways to do it. And we will discuss that on God's Talk Show in 2012. We'll go deep into psychology and how to take control of your thoughts and be aware of your actions and be aware of your subconscious actions. We'll do that because that's what we're about here, isn't it? Unraveling the crap. So, for the last time in 2011, control your thoughts and control your emotions. Because if you don't, someone else or something else, maybe tradition, maybe your church, maybe Tesco's, will control it for you. Maybe even Toys R Us. And I wish we receive everything we've earned. And to be quite honest with you, I think that's exactly what we've got right now. Everything we've earned. If you're not happy with that, earn something else.
Hey, yo!
You're listening to God's Talk Show.
Listen close so you all don't miss.
Danny.
Every Monday.
We want to give you an opportunity to voice your opinion. Please don't sugarcoat it.
It's my duty